go along. So anyone out there have a question you'd like to ask Kane to kick things off?
Not that, Pammy.
What did you think of that one that you did?
Frankorama. Chillerama. I thought it was interesting. I mean, you know, I played an interesting character. What should you know? Frankenstein with a yarmulke. So I thought it was kind of clever. The whole show was fun, I thought. I mean, I'm a big fan of Adam Green, so it's hard to not like something he does. I mean,
Another question out there? So, talk a little about, you know, we always focus so much on Jason and Victor Crawley, and you've done stunts, you perform in basically every genre, I feel.
yeah, I mean, I've been very, very fortunate. We've been talking this weekend about some of the obscure things that I've worked on, like doing a movie with Tupac way back. It's called Nothing But Trouble. Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, John Candy. Tupac was in that movie. Did an episode of Seinfeld that was fun. I worked with Vincent Price. Not directly, but you know, we were in the same project together. You know, somebody brought a Wonder Woman item the other day, and that was the first project I worked on after I got burned. I was out for about a year with the burns, and my first job back was Wonder Woman.
What was that like, stepping back into doing stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess since I got burned within 6 months of starting my career, it wasn't the greatest way to start, but it never even came close to deterring me from the idea of doing stunts. I just learned quite a bit from that, and it was just a matter of time how long it would take before I could get back. And you know, if you ever see that episode, it's Wonder Woman at a convention like this. And she's running around so nobody looks at her twice because everybody's in costumes. She knocks me over running through the crowd, and you can see that I have what is called a jobst garment. When you get burned, your skin, your scars tend to get real bumpy unless you have constant pressure on them for about a year. And so this garment keeps constant pressure, like it's just like almost like a support type garment. So you can see that I'm wearing that in that episode. So it's kind of one of the only things I ever did while wearing those garments, and kind of strange to see it again. But and you probably heard me talk about the fact that right before I got burned, I did an episode of Emergency where I played a guy that had got burned. So a little ironic that a few months later I was really that guy. So,
what was it, and I know you've talked about this before, but for those who haven't heard, what was it that first inspired you to want to work in stunts?
I went to Universal Studios in LA and loved being on the tour because I loved being on the back lot and seeing where things were shot. And, oh yeah, I remember that scene. You know, I just was fascinated by the whole thing. And then at the end of the tour, I saw the stunt show, the Wild West stunt show. And from that moment, I said, that's what I want to do. And it took 10 years before I was able to really start working in the business, but because it's, you know, very, very difficult. It's even more difficult than breaking into acting, because acting, there's auditioning process that you might get lucky. With stunts, there is no auditioning. You are hired by someone that knows that you can do the job. And how did they know if you can do it unless you worked? So very, very difficult to get into, but it was seeing that stunt show that made me say, that's it, that's what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, and I don't know anyone. I've never heard of anyone in my family that knew anybody that was in stunts, so it was a ridiculous gamble, but it worked out.
Another question out there in the audience?
Is there a point ever in your career where a guy who being an icon in film business? I mean, is there a, I mean, now it's like, hey, Hodder. Is there a point
First of all, I personally am not real comfortable with the term icon because it seems a little pretentious to me to present yourself as an icon. I don't know. I appreciate that. But, anyway, the moment where things dramatically changed, and forgive me if you've heard this story before, but this was such a critical moment, was after having shot Friday the 13th, Part 7 in early 1988, early in the year, and then we finished like the end of March with pickup shots, and the movie was in theaters May 13th, which was a Friday, of course. And that's an incredible short amount of time for post-production on a film, and John Buechler was the whole reason that it happened. But in between shooting the film and before the movie was released in theaters, Fangoria had their convention in LA, and I had never been to one. Even though I was a horror fan, I could never really afford to go to a convention because it can get expensive, can it not?
Sure.
Paying people like me to sign shit. But John Buechler, since he directed the movie, and there was a buzz about it now because while we were shooting it, it was totally secret. And in fact, the script that all of the actors were given to use wasn't even called Friday the 13th, it was called Birthday Bash. And the killer in the script was not called Jason, he was called Ethan. So that if anyone looked through the script, they wouldn't say, oh, there's a new Friday the 13th coming out. They would just think, it's a generic movie. So it was very under wraps, but by the time we finished shooting and we went to Fangoria's Weekend of Horrors at LAX, John Buechler was doing a panel just like this, and I was sitting in the audience just experiencing the convention, and he said, by the way, the new Jason is sitting in the audience, and he had me stand up. And I, stood up and sat back down, and then he continued with the panel, and towards the end, I left the room while he was just finishing up and walking down the hall to see what vendors had and stuff, and I turned around and there was, 40 or 50 people following me. Want me to sign stuff, which I had never experienced before. Because again, since we were shooting the movie in such secret, that there were no fans on the set, no reporters, nothing. So I hadn't experienced any of that yet. And that was the first real turning point when I thought, oh, things are going to be different now. And certainly was. And then, fortunately, I continued playing the character after that for a number of years, but, and it just kept changing more and more, as you can imagine. Because when that first movie was out, I used to sign autographs after that Kane, Hodder, Jason #7. That's how I used to sign for about 10 months. I put #7 until I was hired to do Jason Takes Manhattan, and then I stopped just putting 7 because I was just one of 7 guys that had played the character. So if you ever see that autograph somewhere, that's more valuable, I would think, because I only did it for less than a year, and it wasn't very many appearances that I did in that year either.